He was a morbidly obese surgeon destined for an operating table and an early death. Now he's a rebel MD who is fabulously fit and fighting to make America healthy again. This is Stay Off My Operating Table with Dr. Philip Ovadia.
There we go. Okay, now it's recording. Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's the Stay Off My Operating Table podcast with Dr. Philip Ovadia. I'm the talking hairdo Jack Heald, and we are joined today by the first member, or at least a prior member of the law enforcement profession I think we've ever had on the show, Eric Reynolds. Phil, thanks for bringing this guy on. Eric, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so why is he here, Phil?
Well, don't worry, Jack. You're not in trouble. I didn't have to bring the cops in for you.
Oh my God, I always worry about that.
I know. Eric's just one of the amazing people that I've been so fortunate to encounter, on this journey and in the metabolic health community. Eric and I first met, I believe, about a year ago at one of the conferences, Low Carb USA. And I really was just awed by his story, his background. You know, he has really spent his life in the service of others as a police officer, and since leaving the force, as we'll get into, some of the stuff that he has been now doing for health and nutrition. So don't want to give too much away, and why don't I turn it over to Eric so he can introduce himself to our audience.
Well, thank you. I don't know where to start. I lost 75 pounds doing the keto carnivore. I started that in 2018, and it kind of changed my whole direction in life, honestly, from retiring early to selling our house and buying an RV and traveling the country. Like, everything just kind of changed once I realized I was sick and I was being diagnosed with heart disease, and they wanted to put stents in me. And I was really kind of just confused and scared.
Now, how old were you in I don't
in 2018, I would have been approaching, I was 49. And they've been, hammering the cholesterol thing for years on me and stuff. And my wife's kind of a naturopathic person, and she was like, "No, you're not taking a statin and all this stuff." So she educated
good woman
me
to have in
of,
your corner.
Oh man, she's been a lifesaver, let me tell you.
Okay, so 2018, everything, you made a big change in direction. What was the direction you were going?
Well, I saw myself in a documentary. It's called Cops and Cabins. And it was about 8 cops going into the mountains in Georgia, not really knowing each other. And we all decompressed and we cried, we hugged. It was a safe place for us to really unload a lot of stuff that was on our minds. Well, I saw the documentary. It's only like a 10-minute short film, but man, I was heavy and I looked sick. I really did, and I happened to just go play basketball. Like I stayed very active all the time. I was just carrying the extra weight, which led to like knee injuries and, ankle injuries, all the stuff that happens when you're heavy. And one of my buddies lost 50 pounds and he was like, "Yeah, it's this thing called keto." I was like, "What's a martial arts thing?" I didn't know, I had never heard of it. No one ever explained it to me. I didn't see it on any news stories, or, I wasn't listening to the type of talk shows that talked about it then. And I was like, 50 pounds, right? And he's grabbing the rim and stuff. I'm like, man. So I looked into it. I started reading up on it, and I dove in. I started meal prepping a lot more than I used to, really counting calories. I did the whole, not counting calories, counting my macros and everything with my app, like, wow, I never knew that was in this, never knew that was in this. And that's when the train just started rolling. And I lost 20 pounds, I think it was like 6 weeks. And then after 6 months, I was down 45 pounds and feeling fantastic. And of course, there's some other things happened in my career where I was in a shooting, getting shot in the line of duty by a bank robber that we shot and killed. So I was developing over these years PTSD. And when I changed my diet and started feeding my brain real food, it helped me dance with it a little bit and manage it a lot better than anything else I ever had before.
Okay, now that is where I did a little research on you because that's what I do. And we had Dr. Chris Palmer on several months ago. He talked about, in fact, this is a direct quote. He said, "All brain dysfunction is metabolic dysfunction." And when I saw your story about PTSD, I immediately thought back to Chris Palmer. and said, okay, I got to drill down here. It's one thing to be on the doctor side of these kinds of issues, but it's another thing altogether to be on the sufferer side, I guess. If you don't mind, talk about what PTSD, how you experienced it, first of all, and then let's find out more about a ketogenic diet and PTSD and how your experience changed.
I mean, every cop, everybody probably in any armed forces, a lot of people in general have had trauma in their lives. It doesn't have to be a cop in a shooting or anything like that, and I didn't understand how that was going to affect me over the years. At that moment, it was just kind of, we're getting honored as heroes. We were National Officers of the Month in Washington, D.C. So you have this feeling almost like of accomplishment. I survived it. Whew, thank goodness. And over the years and time, I'm gaining weight at this time because a lot of stuff was going on at work. I was a new dad. My son was 5 months old when I got shot. So I'm holding this little infant all this time thinking, oof, what if he aimed higher? What, you see it all the time. So the what if game and survivor's guilt starts to catch up with you a little bit. Every cop story you hear, killed, dead, it hits home. And I couldn't turn it off. Always just running. Every time I saw a Lincoln Town Car, I'm right back in the car chase. It doesn't matter where I went, and I had to go seek Dr. Hernandez at University of South Florida. I did some art therapy that really helped me address some issues all through my whole life, but other traumas. And it's crying. It's sometimes very therapeutic, letting all this out and discussing stuff that sometimes you forgot about. But this is at the end when I'd already started keto. I started that therapy. So I'm already looking for help and realizing, all right, I gotta learn how to dance with this. I had to go through workers' comp, battle them to get coverage to cover me. The foot injury I have from being shot, they're fine with that, but they can't see the injury up top. So they put me through this rigorous meeting with lawyers and making me break down just to go get the help I was trying to get. And that's why so many of us don't go get it.
Sure.
Because you gotta own it. And guys don't want to admit it. And then it leads to other issues. That's why we're holding everything in. We start dying of heart attacks. And that's your specialty. Keep us off your table, right? Oh, look at that lead in. Wow.
Okay, so
go
ahead, Phil.
Yeah, I was just going to follow up on that. So talk about, and I know it's hard to maybe separate these, but, what do you think the impact was of changing the diet versus kind of the therapy and some of the other stuff that you did to tackle the PTSD?
I did keto, like I was saying, about 6 months, and I lost 45 pounds or so. And then I went for a typical blood test that you get at the department every year, yearly blood work, and came back. Your cholesterol is crazy because it went up even more. Because now I'm eating more meat and fats and all this stuff. So it scared me. So I was like, oh man, am I sure I'm doing the right thing? And I went for a CAC score, and it was like 1,500. My doctor's freaking out. And I'm like, oh. So I started looking online, and I found Dr. Ken Berry and Dr. David Diamond talking about cholesterol and statins. And then, it kind of led me down another wormhole of other doctors, other people, and other resources that say, all right, you don't have to dive into this right now and jump on any procedures. But I couldn't believe, I read Nina Teichel's book, Big Fat Surprise. And I couldn't believe the corruption that I was starting to see. And, my police career, we had, the opioid epidemic in South Florida. We arrested doctors, for pill mills and all kinds of stuff. So I saw how at least that side of pharmaceutical was hurting us down here and hurting our jobs. And then you got the fentanyl, it just got worse and worse. So I've never been a real big fan of pharmaceuticals to begin with. But I started seeing that. So they're trying to get me on pills. I'm just like, I got to back away. I need to just read up on this more. And then it was obviously Dr. Saladino. I read, the carnivore code. And then, you just start, I think Dr. Ken Berry's book, it just starts to open your mind. And then I met Doug Reynolds, and then I ended up going to nutrition school. Who would have thought this old cop was going to go outside his comfort zone, start learning words, and my wife had to help me pronounce, man. It was crazy.
All right. I want to go back to the PTSD.
Okay, sorry, I went off on that.
That's okay. That's why I'm here. Keep everybody on track. Um, so for you, it was obsessive thinking. You just couldn't turn off the thoughts.
It was not letting my wife go grocery shopping unless either I was with her or I just went. Because I'm thinking, let's go to, whatever supermarket. Well, sometimes there's active shooters, right?
Right.
Well, let me just go, and then it's, let's not go out to dinner. Let's order in. Let's not go over to family functions as much because I'm tired. I need to decompress. I just want to watch the game. I don't want to go to a family, and that slowly builds over time. I never wore my uniform outside of the apartment or the house. I got to the point where I had an unmarked car, even though a lot of unmarked cars, but at least, because there's this fear when you're pulling up to a red light on a marked car, you're going to just get shot at by some nutcase that's just having a bad day, so, and you've seen it. So all that was happening. I couldn't wait to find out and start looking up retirement options for me, whether there's going to be a disability on PTSD in my foot, because I had another surgery and some other complications with it. And I found out I could retire at 50 years old with the amount of time I had. I had like a year and a half left, and that was my goal. Get out while I can, and as the stress left my body and I started looking towards a future, like out of police work, what am I going to do? It started, I don't know, a lot of cops tend to fall back in other police work. I did not want to get into police work, and at my department, you start losing 50 pounds, cops start to notice, like, man, how'd you go down from a 42 to a 36, and I go, man, I got so much information to tell you. We be getting lied to, right? I go, you got to eat, real food and all. I was like cutting out processed foods from guys, and all of a sudden I had a little following, guys at my department, guys and gals, and records associates, people losing weight, and then that empowered me, and now it gave me another direction besides the sadness I saw in police work all the time, because you're never really going anywhere for anything good, right? Now I'm doing something good, in the beginning of my career, I'm like, yeah, we're going to save the world. And then you figure it out. You're like, oh, you can only save what you can. It's sad, and you see it every day. So this was a whole new jumpstart for me, and it motivated me. And then they just kept calling me, from Hawaii Five-O, hey, Keto Five-O, Keto Five-O, and then it just kind of stuck, and because keto is what got me to my healthy state right now,
How much did you, I would say police officers probably have a reputation of being unhealthy, and all the cliches about eating the donuts and you're riding around a lot, but it's obviously a job that involves a lot of physicality, and you would think that most police officers should and need to be in optimal physical health. But obviously, there's a lot about the job that works against that. Things like shift work and maybe
marriages.
All the stress obviously all works against it. But talk a little bit about looking back, and I know you might not have recognized it at the time, but how do you think being in poor physical shape impacted you on the job? And how do you see that now in the clients you work with, the other law enforcement officers that you work with, how their poor health might be impacting their performance?
Yeah, it's always the same story. You get out of the academy, you're all fit, you're ready to go. And then over the 20-year, 30-year career, you can just see all the guys blew it up, and it's not just the police work, it's everything, diet and their own personal stresses and stuff in life, working so much. I found that I was eating okay, but I like sandwiches. I'm like Joey from Friends, give me a sub any day of the week. So I would eat lots of subs and bread, and I didn't realize how detrimental that was and how my body was storing it all the time, storing that energy. And when you're in a police car, you're not really, TV, you're running after bad guys. You may get that once a week, maybe, for the most part, it's your heart pounding every call you go to, you're searching a building, you're pulling a car over. That's the stuff that's, wearing you down and wearing you out. The adrenaline rush of the radio, the alert tone goes off. What's it going to be? Is it going to be a dead cop, bank robbery, a child choking? So there's a lot of anxiety that happens within the job. So when I started getting away, I got lucky that there was an evidence job that opened up 6 months after my shooting in 2013. I put in for evidence and I got the evidence job. So I was able to ride the evidence job, banker's hours, kind of, 8 to 4, Monday to Friday. I wasn't out there handling calls. It was a perfect place for me to kind of hide out. But I learned a lot in evidence. I was part of a lot of investigations, and a lot of things happened. And I was like, maybe I can fall into this later on in life, just do evidence. I don't have to go out there and, save the world, and I'll just be in-house, So I got kind of into that world. But I was still dealing with it, even though I'm not out there on the road, listen to the radio all day. Think that's doing stuff, you're wondering, hey, that guy didn't answer the dispatch, and then they had alerts, it just was constant all the time. But when we retired, and I say that, my wife was with me this whole journey, and we started traveling the country, going and see like the 5 Great Lakes. We've been homeschooling our kids since 2018. We didn't have a crystal ball. It was just that things were feeling right at that moment. And what my son needs as an active, like warrior little male, he needs to run that energy off before he can concentrate. Almost like a dog you got to take to the park, right? So that's what we did.
It's got nothing to do with the subject of this podcast, but I just got to jump in. That is such wisdom. I raised 2 boys myself. I've got 8 grandsons. Awesome. And oh my God, the idea of putting those poor little guys in a desk and making them sit for 6 hours a day. Oh.
Yeah, he would come home and he would explode, and we're like, what's wrong with this maniac? What's going on? It's because everything's built up, and he's trying to be good all day long. Get in line.
Right.
Stop talking. There's just so, and I went to my first homeschool meeting, and I was sold. I did a lot of community outreach stuff when I was a police officer. So I talked to a lot of young kids, and I was impressed at talking with these kids. I mean, there was a stigmatism when I was younger in the 80s with homeschool. But it's totally flipped, man. These kids are already graduating by 16. They're starting college, if that's the direction you want to go. They don't divide them up in so many topics. Like, if you're good in math and science, well, let's ride that train. Keep going, right? Why waste your time with something that's just going to interfere with your real learning of what you want to do? And it could be building stuff, whatever, And so traveling the country, waking up with my boys, which I never towed. I wasn't an RV guy. I never did any of that. My wife indoctrinated me with tiny house shows, and I'm like, this lady's crazy. I grew up in Miami, big house, big dreams, South Beach. I want a boat, jet ski. She's trying to get me to move in a box. But, we rented a couple of trailers, and it was some good, visual, like the beach or something and the woods. I was like, man, I could do this for about 4 or 5 years, and then we'll find a place we call home, which we don't know where it is yet. But that's when I realized, thank goodness I got out of that career, because I didn't realize what that did to my psyche on a day-to-day basis. And being back in South Florida, like I am right now, brings it all back.
Okay.
I'm a cop again back here.
Unpack that psyche thing you just said, what it did to your psyche, and how you have changed.
Well, during that time, I discovered carnivore. I went more of a meat-based diet. I lost another 25 pounds. I got down to 180 pounds. I saw my abs for the first time ever. Never had abs before. They say, oh, they're there. Well, I never had them, or they were under my fat is what happened. So I couldn't believe it. And the way I was feeling, my energy, it was mind-blowing. And then getting rid of the stressful job. I could sleep. I didn't have somewhere to be. I could be at home with my kids. How cool is that? I was an older dad in my 40s having young kids, and everyone laughed at me. Hey, grandpa, you can be the old guy at the baseball field. I go, now I look younger than all those 30 or 40-year-old guys, and I'm 53 now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was just tremendous. And then people see it, and then you start helping more people, and it just grows,
I was looking at looking at your photos. I guess this was probably one where you were being awarded valor or something, maybe when you were shot.
Mm-hmm.
And I had all these other photos of you, recent now kind of photos, and for a while I couldn't figure out who the heck you were. Well, which one is Eric? Oh, it's astonishing what all that extra weight around your face. I mean,
it was crazy.
Wow.
I look back now, and it's like, wow. And I joke with my wife, I go, you didn't even have to divorce me. You traded me in for a new man. I got more energy. And I mean, I'm chasing her around. She's like, get away from me. We already got 2 boys. But I'm like, you don't understand what carnivore does to me. I want to reproduce. No, I'm just kidding. But it's definitely helped me, my energy levels out, with the young boys running around with them. I couldn't believe, like you were saying, looking back at those pictures, and I thought I looked all right.
Yeah.
I really did. I got down to 211 pounds back in, I think it was 2007. We were doing some calendar pose with cops and tight shirts. And so it wasn't too risque, but I was like, man, I still want to look good for it, right? Running, training, like egg whites, with turkey bacon, just all the, oh man, I thought I looked pretty good. I mean, I'm like 30 pounds lighter than that. It's just, this is where my body rocks, right here. It stays. I can go up a little bit if I watch, if I start holidays, I have a bagel too many or something like that. I don't do donuts, and never did donuts my whole career. And then, I felt like, wow, this is where I should have probably been for the last 30 years, all along, right? All along. And that's how we raise our boys. Our boys eat clean. We're not crazy. We bring our own like almond flour cupcakes to a birthday party. He still gets to enjoy it. And who cares? And seems to look at us, the parents. The other kids don't give a crap. But this kid, he's not eating pizza. He's eating cauliflower pizza or whatever, The parents are like, oh, I don't know if I could ever do that. Get out, your kid. They're doing cocaine at a party. You gonna let your kid just start doing it? I mean, come on. So, yeah, my kids are awesome, and I'm really seeing what a nice, because I grew up in the 80s with Pop-Tarts, corn pops, corn flakes, all that garbage, and they were testing it on us back then. Oh, let's throw in the corn. Let's see how they react to that, and it hit me. By the time I was 20, I was obese, even though I played football. That's why I played lineman. You're too fat to run after passes. You're gonna go block, or go tackle somebody from the line. So, man, I would have loved to play football and sports at this size.
Yeah, exactly. Talk a little bit more about that. Talk about your experience, trying to lose weight, trying to, improve your health prior to keto. And then what were your thoughts like, when you discovered keto, your coworker, clued you in and you started learning all this stuff. What kind of thoughts did that bring up for you?
I realized how influenced I was on the no fat, low fat, like you've seen in the Magic Pill and all these fat fiction movies and stuff like that. I was like, oh my God, that was us. That was us. Yep, we did that. We ate that. We ate that. We ate that, and it kind of made me angry, because then I started researching the FDA and the nutrition councils and all this stuff, and you got a post today about, what's his name with was it back in 1972, with the food, them making these decisions about what we're going to eat. And then I realized, I've been chasing cartels and bad guys my whole life. I'm still doing it. It's just a food cartel, or it's a farm, or an insurance cartel. They're all involved with each other. And it's just so sad that I would have been a guy probably getting, operated on in the next probably 10 years, the way I was seeing all my, I had a guy named Joe Crowder, one of my cop buddies, passed away of a heart attack jogging. He was our canine guy, rock star, chiseled, typical story you hear about a guy that dies when he's running. But he had little heart issue a few years before, and they put stents in it, right? So they never said the stents had anything to do with him. Like he had any, was it stent thrombosis or something like that? I mean, they never said any of that, right? And when they were talking to me about stents, that's when I just started reading up on it. Like, can we reverse this? And, and luckily so far, I haven't gone back to get that CAC score, but I don't like all that radiation in my body, but I'm just going based on my, my A1C is 5.1, and all my markers I'm looking at. I'm like, all right, I've been the best I've ever been. Why am I going to mess with this? And it's just been an awesome ride, man. And, being able to help people and, starting this whole Keto Five-O group, and, everywhere I go, I put up my, my cop flag, and I meet veterans and firemen. And that's what Cops and Campers is designed to do. Get us together as therapy. And then we talk diet. I can't tell them no beer. Yeah, I can say no beer, and then they're gonna be all mad. So I gotta bring them in. All right, let's have some beers. Let's have some barbecue, and then we'll start peeling the layers back to get you healthy, so you can enjoy your retirement.
Eric, I wanted to ask you. You're traveling. I mean, you basically your home has wheels now. Is that right?
Yeah, we have a home location, which is a family house that different siblings have lived in based on who has new kids and whatever.
Right.
So we still have a home base, but we sold our house and bought a truck and trailer. I got a big F-350 dually, and we tow our house. It's crazy. I can't believe I do it. We're driving down the road and I go, I can't believe my whole life is behind us right now.
Okay. You are a very fit looking dude. How do you work out? What do you do for workouts?
All right. Well, always working out my whole life, trying to get big and not using, I was never a big supplement guy. I never did roids or anything like that. I never got big. I was like, I should be the size of Arnold Schwarzenegger, as much weight as I've lifted in my life, right? And a lot of it was the wrong kind of lifting, maybe. I was more too concentrating on my chest and arm, typical guys, and never really concentrating on my core, and when I saw my abs doing a little bit of core work, I was like, oh, I want to try some more, and then, Dr. Ben's book, was it 15 Minutes to Fitness? I learned resistance training, which is doing a full body workout. I kind of split them in half. I do upper body and lower body because I'd like to get a little more in. And it's just time under tension. It's resistance training. Like I'll do a set for 90 seconds and I may only do 3 reps. And meanwhile, the guy next to me is just done 15, jerking it up, pounding his joints, and meanwhile, I'm all getting veins are popping. I'm jacked. I'm sweating, just because I've been holding the weight for so long. Pull-ups, lots of pull-ups. I could never do pull-ups in my life. Got a portable pull-up bar that has pins. You set it up. My kids are doing a bunch. They motivate me. And now I'm up to like 8. I never could do them, And a lot of, those guys you'll see on Instagram that are doing like the pull-ups and they have the legs out and they're like super strong. I'm like, how's his shoulder able to do that? And I start looking at stuff like that and like standing handstands, and even standing on your head, trying to hold it and all kinds of just different stuff to get the body moving, tag with my kids. I'm running after them. They're exhausting, but hey, they saved me, man. I'm telling them, I tell them every day, I go, you boys saved my life because the direction I was going. And so I started looking at my life a little more closely, and it was pretty impactful talking to those guys.
So is your primary means of staying fit what you eat?
Pretty much.
It's not your workouts.
No, it's not my workouts at all. I mean, it helps, it helps to tune you up. And for me, it helps with my, own mental issues with whether it's, I've only been retired 3 years. And when you've been working since you were 14, it's Monday comes and it's still a psychological process. Oh, it's Monday. Do I have court today? Do I have this? I got to go to work, the grind. I'm like, hold up. I'm at the beach. Let's chill. Let's pop a gummy. Let's go walk the beach, right? So, and then I still battle it. Weekends, I have more fun in my head than during the week. I should have just as much fun on a Wednesday, Thursday right now, but it's tough to break that cycle,
So
Yeah.
Can you see any direct connection in that year and a half that you were keto and still a cop with your mental health, where a change in diet was effective in helping you have a better experience mentally?
The best thing that happened to me was I stopped sitting down to work, because when I was in evidence, we have a desk and you sit. Well, I hurt my back about a year before I started keto. I got one of those desks that goes up and down, and I started standing. It's better for my back. Well, then I started moving my feet around. I got one of the little counts your steps, and all of a sudden I'm at 9,000 steps. I'm like, I'm going to do a lap around the apartment. I'm going to get to 1,000. And I started, my energy level increased so much because of the, obviously I was putting more fat and protein in my body and less processed seed oils and all this other stuff. And then my mental, like I was firing, like I could multitask, like, I was like getting evidence for a homicide trial and being able to count the things. And then, phone call. And it was just like, I was not making little mistakes I used to make before, with, maybe you're just thinking a little slow or you didn't feel like it, being lazy. Which I didn't realize a lot of it was, my diet. But man, it was like I was shot out of a gun. Man.
Okay, whoa. I want to highlight that because I think that may be really important. Phil, he said his perception of himself was lazy, which was why he wasn't sharp multitasking. And that changed with keto. Is that a common experience? And have you heard of folks dealing with that kind of self-perception that changes?
Yeah, I mean, I would even say that's something, I've dealt with myself and I've experienced myself. I mean, since making all of these changes, I look at all the things that I've done in my life, starting second, third business, starting the practice, all of this podcasting. I cannot imagine myself, doing this, being on camera and doing the podcasting back when I was unhealthy, back before I changed my diet. And I think that's a part that gets missed in this conversation a lot. We focus on the weight loss and we focus on, the lab work and the heart scans, all of that stuff. But oftentimes we lose, and I'd love to hear Eric's perspective on this. We lose sight of the fact that when you get intentional about one part of your life, about what you're eating, that makes you more intentional about all the other parts of your life. And you really start to examine, what you're doing and where you're going and what your goals are. And this is a story, again, that I hear over and over from my patients, from, other physicians in the space. But I'd love to hear Eric's thoughts on that.
Yeah, like you were saying, you start firing on all cylinders, right? You're thinking clearly. My organization skills, I mean, I didn't go discover anything. I'm not a multimillionaire or anything like that, but here I am running two companies, the Cops and Campers and Keto Five-O, trying to help people. Something I never thought I would ever do, like trying to understand websites and Twitter and freaking Instagram. Like that's the furthest thing I ever want to do when I retired, and here I am in this world of trying to spread the word, meet obviously guys like you and do as much talking about it as I can. And I was the shy guy in school too, man. I didn't like to talk in front of people, and here I am yapping all the time at trailer parks with people. And, I just, I think the command presence thing as a cop showing up sometimes and just doing it because you have to, that kind of prepared me for this life to where, man, it's not so bad because I've gone through a lot worse and I'm talking about something I love and I'm passionate about, so yeah, it got me motivated, dedicated, it was crazy.
So I want to speak to our listeners real quickly. I know this is a common experience for a lot of young men. I should be getting more done. I'm lazy. I'm just not organized. I'm not where I need to be in my life. If you've had those kinds of thoughts running like a merry-go-round through your brain, I'm going to recommend that you consider the possibility that what you're dealing with is a metabolic issue, that the fuel you are using to drive your machine is not allowing you to operate the way the machine was designed to operate. And that, it in your gut, you've got more in you, you are capable of and have the potential for far more than you're doing. And the problem is the fuel you're feeding yourself. You're stuck. We got Keto Five-O here, who's walking proof of the change. And Dr. Ovadia too. Good Lord.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, very well said, Jack. And let's talk about some of the things that this has led you to do, Eric. So let's start with Cops and Campers. Tell us more about that.
I don't know if you guys know the backstory on it at all, but I was at a campground in 2021. Every campground I go to, I put up my American Thin Blue Line flag, honors my fallen brothers and sisters. My mom's a retired homicide sergeant from Miami-Dade. So, it's in my blood. And I put it up, and every other campground we go to, that's how I meet veterans, or I meet families of law enforcement. Oh, my son's a cop in Baltimore or whatever. You just, you're shooting the shit. And this campground asked me to take the flag down. And I was like, what? The guy rolled up in a golf cart, didn't get out, didn't introduce himself, and goes, hey, you need to take down your flag. I thought I was busting my chops. Like he was going to say, hey, I'm retired, blah, 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 And he was like, no, you need to take it down. I'm like, oh, you're serious. So I turned on my phone. It was weird being on this side of it. Oh, I'm going to film you, but here I am doing it. And I asked him again, I go, what'd you tell me to do? Here it comes. Guess what's coming in me? Guess what's starting to boil, right? I'm getting in the red. you know? And I go, what'd you tell me? And he goes, you need to take down your thin blue line flag. And I just started, the video's out there on my YouTube channel. You can tell I start to stumble my words because my brain's just starting to freaking, right? And I said some profanity as I walk up to him, and then the camera shuts off, right? I didn't do anything. I walked away, and then I vented it, and I go touch the flag and see what happens. They send a manager out, and then she's sitting there telling me to take the flag down because it's a modified flag. It's not a real American flag. And behind her, there's my flag blowing. It's pretty funny on the video, but I ended up putting it in my truck because we just drove 6 hours from Niagara Falls, and my family, we'd already settled in. I'm not going to move us right now, you know, in a temper tantrum. So I put up everything, because if you have the flag on your camper, that's your property. If it's in the ground, I guess technically they own it. So they have a right. So this camping group that I was a part of, you know, I kind of went on Twitter and reached out to a couple of cop buddies that were, you know, they'd done some podcasts, and Law Enforcement Today did a story on it. Well, then cops started, I stayed for a whole week. I didn't leave. I ended up putting up tablecloths within blue lines. They said flag. Everything I had outside was police related, except for the flag, right? And then other cops started walking up to me there, and they're like, yeah, they told me to take down my flag last week. I was like, you know, I'm like, this has been going on more than me, right? So I ended up starting this group where we want to go to pro cop, you know, pro first responder campgrounds. Like, why give them our money if they're not going to, you know, want our flag there? And there were some issues there that happened the year of 2020 when they had the, you know, the riots and nobody liked cops. And so there was some background there. But they had Canadian flags up. I'm like, yeah, Canadian flag. What are you talking about, right? So I got suspended from the camping group because the video ended up 1,000 Trails, and they go, oh, you were belligerent to our staff. You're suspended 2 months. So I couldn't book anywhere at this camping that we pay money to camp. And 4 different campsites in upstate New York heard about it, and they all called us and said, hey, bring your camper, your flag, and your family. You got 2 weeks on us at Cape Vincent, or it was in Ithaca, New York, or it was in Chautauqua, all these places that I never knew existed. And my wife's from New York. She didn't even know they existed, you know, all up there on the Canadian border stuff, right?
All right, I'm going to pause you right there for a minute, Eric, for a little lesson in persuasion. What you did, not necessarily intentionally, but you drew a line in the sand, although you didn't know where, you weren't aware it was a line in the sand when you put that flag up. You took a stand for who you are and what you believe in. And the result that you experienced is what anybody who wants to engage in persuasion must do and will experience. If you take a stand, what's going to happen? The typical world falls into 3 categories. There's about 30% of the people who are going to love you regardless of what you do, 30% of the people who are going to hate you regardless of what you do. And the battle of the mind is for that 40% in the middle. And what you did by putting that flag up, you announced to the 40% and the 30% are going to hate you where you stood. And inevitably what happens is you attract those who wouldn't know about you otherwise and repel those who are going to hate you anyway and don't know they're going to hate you. And the beauty of all that, this is just basic human psychology. I'm a marketer by trade.
I feel like I'm on your couch right now. This is good.
All right. I want to encourage people, because there's so much fear about taking a stand in about anything. You know, if you announce that you're, anyway, I'm not going to go down that road. I just love that on the one hand, you pulled out the 30% who hate you there in the campground. You can't put this up, blah, 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 blah. And those people are going to hate you anyway. As soon as they find out anything about you, they're going to hate you. They will not stand with you. But as a result of having taken that public stand, drawing a public line in the sand, you also attracted to yourself people who never would have been attracted otherwise. So the idea that 100% of the people are going to love us is just folly. You got to accept the fact that at most 70% of the people are going to love us, 30% are going to hate us. And repelling the 30% at the exact same time that you're repelling those who will hate you, you're attracting those from the middle who don't know what to think about you. It's a beautiful, powerful way of creating a community of like-minded people. So I commend you, and I commend that technique to my audience.
Well, thank you. And it turned into such a positive thing. Hudson Valley News came out and did a story on it. A Big Frog had me interview on their radio show, and that's how the word got out there for the campsites to reach out. And then this summer in June, we had the first inaugural Cops and Campers event at the first campsite at Spruce Row in Ithaca, New York. He was the first one to call me, say, bring your stuff. And it was a cop weekend with a band. We had National Guard out there with bounce houses. Campground was sold out. Guys just hanging around campfires and never met each other. They're from different cities, different counties, we haven't had anybody from another country, but hopefully. And we did a 30-minute documentary on it where we interview some of the cops and families and see how this type of therapy, getting them out together in a retreat setting, camping. Come on, everyone loves camping, right? And then you meet a guy or you meet a couple of people, and now you have a little circle, a little bond, someone you can, hey, let's go camping next month together. It's another way for us like-minded officers that have been through trauma, and maybe we're not surrounded by our friends anymore because we're not on shift. And it's just been fantastic.
I have a question for you. And Phil, actually, I should throw this one to both of you. Okay. I dated an ICU nurse for a long time, and she worked the overnight shift. And I noticed that she and almost all of her friends all had a common set of characteristics. They were all in poor shape, wildly out of shape in many cases. They all had what I would characterize as a really short fuse away from a patient's bedside, and kind of just a whole host of various health maladies that I felt were all related to the job. Now, same thing with physicians, Phil, same thing with cops, Eric?
Yeah, I was on edge. I was irritable. I became somebody I never was before in my career, and it still shows itself now, in my parenting skills sometimes. I'm working on it. I mean, I'm not beating them over the head with anything, but I can be a bit abrasive, and I try to work on that and try to use, educate them. And that's why my wife, she's the perfect yin and yang for me. She's able to all right, let's use our words and explain this, not yell.
Yeah, I would say it's certainly something I see commonly among, nurses, physicians. The stress of the job, when your body is constantly dealing with stress, when it's constantly in that stress state, and that stress can come from lots of different things. It can come from your job, it can come from your relationships, it can come from the food you're eating. These processed foods, these metabolically unhealthy foods, are stressing your body to try and deal with them. And when you're constantly sort of at that low to moderate level of stress, and then you add another stressful event on top of it, the patient goes bad or the kids are misbehaving or whatever it is, now you're up to that red line level. Instead of going from calm to a little bit stressed, you've gone from a little bit or moderate stress to just off the charts. And I think that's a very real phenomena. And like I said, we might not be able to change our job situations. The reality is that some people need to do these jobs, but if we improve the other areas like the diet, that are contributing to that chronic stress, again, then we can bring the baseline level down, and now the stresses that come with the job, don't put us to the red line level. They put us to kind of moderate level, and we can deal with that a lot better. So something, again, that I see, that I've experienced in myself. I deal a lot better today with those really stressful situations as a heart surgeon than I did when I was an unhealthy heart surgeon.
Talk more about that, Phil.
Come on, I mean,
unpack that a little bit for us. What's that
Yeah.
look like?
It looks like, if I'm up all night operating, which occasionally happens, in the past, you didn't want to be around me the next day, my wife or my kids, or whoever it was, or just, being at work the next day and dealing with, what would normally be minor issues that, seemed like, I did not react well to. And today, I can deal with it a lot better. I can deal with being up all night and being through those stressful situations. And it's something that we can't quantify it as well as the weight loss or a lab marker. But it's very real. And I think many of the patients I work with, many of the people I interact with in the metabolic health space, they all have a similar story around whatever it is in their life, however that translates to their life. What Eric's talking about, it's a very common side effect, let's say, of getting metabolically healthy.
Well, let's say it's one of the key benefits.
Yeah, certainly.
If you're listening to this and your focus is on, I'm fat, I need to lose weight, and you're struggling, maybe add this additional benefit. It's not merely a physical improvement. It's a mental clarity and emotional stability that you may never remember having experienced. By getting your body healthy, your mind and your emotions tend to follow along. Would that be accurate to say for you, Eric?
Yeah, so I'll start with my gut health. That's why I tell people a carnivore diet was a great way for me to have like an elimination diet, because I always threw vegetables in out of guilt, my whole life.
Yeah.
Just, I got to have broccoli, and then cauliflower was a good friend in the keto days. It helped me with a lot of dishes and stuff like that. But then, man, once I pretty much went eggs and bacon and maybe a little, fat bomb now and then or something. And, if I need to de-stress now and then, I'll mix a little vodka with sparkling water. I won't use soda, I just, and takes the edge off. But man, it was night and day the way my focus was. And then, when I started losing weight, I started feeling more confident. That's another thing. You start feeling good. Oh, I look a little better. These pants aren't as tight. So, there's a whole thing going on. Oh, I'm on another notch. Holy cow, this is awesome. And I was going the opposite direction all the years. Like, getting a little tight,
So talk some about Keto Five-O now. We talked about cops and campers. What's Keto Five-O? What do you do there?
Well, when I tried, I think I was talking with Doug Reynolds of Low Carb USA one day online and trying to sign up with his network. And I told my story. I've, lost all this weight and I was helping cops. I was just a coach then. And he goes, "Oh man, you should come on the podcast, episode 50. So for Keto Five-O, that's kind of cool." I was like, episode 50. And after we got done, he goes, "Hey, you ever thought about, going to see Jeff Cotterman, and maybe getting a nutrition's license or something, start really diving into this?" So I was like, ooh, more school, typical guy. I don't want to learn anything new, but talking to my wife and, I was like, hey, you know what? You've already been helping people. Why not dive more into this? And over that whole COVID summer, in 2020, I was studying as we were traveling and doing everything online, finding proctors at the library to help me do testing. And then I'm on video doing push-ups. Like, this is how I would train somebody, because I got the personal training license as well. And, I'd already owned the company, Keto Five-O. I just thought it was going to be something, I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I felt like it was pretty good that I could help cops with across the country. I would love to go to different departments and just talk to these guys and have some type of presentation. And, maybe I can't save them all, but a couple of guys might say, you know what, I need to follow what this guy's doing, because look at him. He's like me. I was in the same boat as him, and I can relate to these guys. So that was the original goal of the Keto Five-O. Not just cop, first responders, I got fireman buddies that I help out and talk to, and it's grown. Trust me, I'm still traveling around a trailer. It's not like we're flying and doing anything fancy, but you know what? I have a lot more passion and happiness with this career than I did previously. The cop job was honorable. It was man, I met some friends for life, and we went through some turmoil, and there was a lot of, things that happened, and I don't want to go back to that life. And this has set me free, man. And, keto, you hear different words about, I don't preach keto. It's pretty much eat real food. Whether you want to go more vegetables than this, just make sure you're not getting the ones that have been sprayed with, Monsanto's crap and all this other stuff, and if you do want to try meat, some, like my wife doesn't like eating lamb because they're cute. Like, man, lamb's delicious, right? So it's, you gotta kind of see what works. She doesn't eat pork. I'm like, well, I do. I'm a cop. So what do you think I'm going to do? And I worked on the farm for last summer for 3 months. We took the family there, and they paid us. Sorry, it's cops and camper stuff, but it's related to keto.
That's good.
And
Oh,
we work
great.
we work for our food. Steaks, ribeyes, roasts. They got eggs and stuff for us. And here I am driving a tractor. I never drove a tractor. I'm a kid from Miami, suburb kid, right? Here I am in a tractor. Oh my God, I'm driving a tractor, and then we're slaughtering animals, he's teaching us how to do it. And what a brutal thing that is. But a 10-year-old son got introduced to that life right away. But it made me appreciate, maybe I want to have my own food one day, have our own farm, or maybe have a retreat program where people come not only get themselves healthy nutrition wise, but also mental. Maybe a campground will be called Cops and Campers, and that'll be the campground where I have events. I don't know. Now I'm getting a lot of rumor. People want to go across the country with it. The keto business, I just pick up as I go. I'm in a gym. Somebody goes, "Hey man, I looked you up. So what is about this keto thing?" And I just talk to them. Hey, here's my scan code. I got a bunch of friends that are a lot smarter in this topic, and there's other doctors you can go to. If your doctor's not on board, there's a network out there you can find. And I'm trying to get my mom away from her doctors. For a typical person that finds himself getting healthy right now, you want to save the people around you. And then there's sometimes the toughest people to try to save, right? They've seen it. They've seen me lose almost 80 pounds. I'm right here in front of your eyes. And it's still, it's hard, and it's tough. Once you get somebody to finally crack in there, like my mom is, I'm like, all right, mom, all right, I got somebody in Nashville, or I got somebody, in Greenville, or, let's get this done. Just start talking to somebody else besides me, because it's probably tired of, me yapping to her about it.
Talk about your your carnivore diet. What's that? What does that include and exclude? I think I know what it is for Phil, but I want to hear what it is for you, because
I've been fasting lately. I don't, like, right now I haven't eaten, and I may not eat till 1 or 2 o'clock, but I break my fast around 7 o'clock with a bone broth and coffee and heavy cream. So technically I'm breaking the fast, but for me, I jumpstart my energy level. I'm able to go to the gym, do some stretching outside. Because remember, when I go outside, I'm usually at a park, or I'm usually somewhere, and it's beautiful trees. Right now I'm at my brother-in-law's driveway, so it's not the same vibe, but we had to stay out of our campground for a week to go back in. So yeah, and then I grill a lot. We'll have ribeyes have gone up, so have New York strip. So I make my buddies buy that for me when we go to lunch, and then I just do a lot of the hamburger, a lot of ground, a lot of eggs, bacon. We do roasts, because when I was on the farm, we had an animal that came with us on our trip. So we have a freezer in our trailer with, half an animal. And we just, his name was Incredible, and Incredible Bull, get it, Bull. And he's delicious, but he's starting to run low. So we're like, oh, what are we going to do? But that's pretty much it, man. And it's crazy.
Cheese of any kind?
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah, I do cheeses. My wife's more on their lactose, so they do a lot of goat cheese and raw goat milk. And I'll still get a block of, cheddar, not the cheap stuff, but, something that I know is it's a perfect fix. Sometimes I'm just needing something. I just break off a hunk of cheese and throw it down and keep doing, what I'm doing or something, cheeses. I'm trying to think what else I usually do. I did some organic or organ supplements, from a couple of companies, and one of the owners got in trouble recently for coming out on some stuff. But anyways, I still believed in a lot of that stuff. It seemed to work good for me and my kids. I'll do that. And then, lots of salt and mineral, like we have minerals, because we, a lot of water we drink is totally nothing in it, because we have a super duper water filtration system. So we got to add minerals to our water and stuff like that, and collagen, we'll add that. and it's not that hard. It's just expensive. I can eat 2 ribeyes and now I'm out $40, and then now my 10-year-old can eat a ribeye. So, oh, here we go. Right. So
What are your kids? How are your kids
Yeah.
eating?
what were you saying, Phil? Sorry.
Well, yeah, Jack was asking about the kids, and then I was going to just say, what would you say to the people who, say it's too hard to do that? I can't do that. I can't just eat meat. Love to hear both of those answers.
I've always been a heavy meat eater my whole life. So I think I was a little different than a lot of other people that, especially I'm finding guys are like 10 years younger than me, didn't nearly eat the amount of red meat, especially as I did growing up. Even if I had Salisbury steak and a TV dinner, now they're not even getting the steak. They're getting some processed, low grain, whatever the crap it is. So that's, what just got me going. But what were you saying, Jack? What was your question? I'm sorry, I got sidetracked.
Well, I want to know how your kids eat and how old they are and how they eat.
They're 10 and 7. They were both breastfed till almost 3 years old. My wife went natural, so there was no chemicals going through my kids' bodies or anything. And that's kind of when it started, this whole new journey, because we go to some birthing classes, and here I am getting off a shift with my vest on, and I'm sitting on a pillow, and we're all holding hands. I'm like, what is this? This is a seance. It was called the Bradley method, and it talked about empowering your woman and all this stuff, right? So I did it, and I learned a lot though, and how my wife wanted to have a baby, the birthing plan, and it opened my eyes. And with them being breastfed, and then we would introduce something, and we could see the effects of it, whether it was wheat or whether it was maybe the lactose. She ended up eating a lot of dairy. She makes her own yogurt, so I think she overdid it on yogurt, and certain things. But they eat more carbs than I do. We don't do as much grains, like a lot of walnuts, olives in the morning, obviously eggs. One of my sons has a sensitivity to eggs, so he can only have it like every couple of days. And it depends on the egg and where it came from. We're learning, like, if it's corn-fed chicken, then he has a reaction. But if it's a real chicken that's just living naturally and not, eating that garbage, he doesn't have a reaction. So we're learning that, wow, it really is important about eating like a corn-fed cow versus a grass-fed. There is a difference in that type of meat. Why wouldn't it go down to eggs? Why wouldn't it go down to so many other factors, So they eat, we'll do like millet bread. My wife makes sourdough bread, 4 ingredients, it's not that it can't stay out, typical stuff. She makes bone broth. Every morning they have bone broth tea, and that gets them going, and if anything, they're understanding all this. Everything I talk about with you guys and my friends and family, they're hearing it. My kid's already a 10-year-old. He's reading the back of the boxes now. He's like, look, Dad, there's corn syrup in there. I'm like, yeah, I want them to know, you can't have that stuff,
No, exactly. I mean, just as we were sort of programmed in the opposite direction, as children, that, that the Cheerios are the healthy thing and heart healthy and low fat, and we heard all that messaging. Now, we're about the same age. So, that's what we heard our whole lives growing up. The way to undo this is really to start with the kids. And, I think a large part of what I do, is not really, it's great that I treat the patients that I treat and I work with the patients that I work with. But what I really hope is happening, and in many cases I know is happening, is that their kids are now getting influenced and they're seeing the changes, and they are starting to connect, what we eat with how we feel and how we perform. And hopefully, we can reverse this very scary trend that we're on in terms of our children's metabolic health, because it seems like it's striking earlier and earlier in life. I've talked about how, the average age of the patients that I operate on in the 20 years that I've been a heart surgeon, very short period of time on the grand scale, has, essentially gone down 20 years,
Wow.
going from, 60 and 70-year-olds to 40 and 50-year-olds. So we got to do something to reverse it, and we got to start with our kids.
Yeah, it's been great. The kids are, I saw it when just his athletic ability, both of them especially. My younger one's more the chess player. My oldest one's a checkers player. Let's go knock some stuff down. Let's take that hill. That's my oldest, right? Youngest one's like, hey, let's call in more reinforcements. I don't know if I want to dive into this right now, but they're just smart as a whip, man. And they, we treat them like adults. We talk to, it's none of this, and they're around adults, and usually in the communities, the homeschool groups, they're leaders. Like my son likes to catch snakes, and he'll catch lizards and teach the kids, oh yeah, this is how the snake eats a lizard, but you'll see a table of 10 kids all just watching. I go, that's learning right there, especially from another kid that's got pot, and he'll talk to them. He's not preaching out there to these kids, but he'll see kids eating Doritos, and then they'll see Killian eating pork rinds. Why are you eating pork rinds? Well, because it's better than that. And then kids like the pork rind. They're like, hey, mom, can I have some pork rinds like Killian? And that's what I started seeing. He's influencing people even at 10 years old,
That's fantastic. I remain tremendously hopeful about the future, tremendously optimistic. I know that the forces of darkness are at work and are moving and are arrayed against those forces of light, but light always wins. And this is the truth. This is how our bodies were designed to work. It's better for us. It's better for our brains. It's better for our emotions. It's better for our children. It's just better. And we're going to win. All right. Well, Eric, folks are undoubtedly going to want to get in contact with you as a result of these conversations. What's the best way to do that?
Just go to my website, keto5o.com. And I got a group page on Facebook. I'm on, Instagram and Twitter. And Instagram I'm more active in. And you guys can look up the story how I found a cop brother in Florida through 23andMe DNA, 2 hours away from me, an older brother.
Oh my goodness.
We were on Fox, and they interviewed us on Fox and Friends. And you know what he'd been doing for 10 years? Camping, RVing. I never knew anything about it. A guardian angel. This guy shows up out of nowhere and he's like, yeah, I've been camping for 10 years. I'm like, I don't know nothing about it. He's like, well, I'll teach you.
And this is a half brother? Yeah,
my dad had relations with a woman, and that's a fun conversation. Call my dad, hey, where were you in the fall of 1967? Because Dave was adopted. And my dad's like, what? Fall of 67? I go, come on. He's like, well, there was this one girl. I go, well, guess what? You got a brand new bouncing baby 51-year-old son right now. So
oh my goodness.
But that was a great story to find him, because he was only child.
He was a cop
2 hours away in Orlando.
He's basically doing the same thing you're doing.
He retired a year after I did.
Just weird.
Crazy. And he didn't know. He's just like, I'll do this 23andMe because his adoptive parents died. And he didn't know anything about his history. He had no siblings. He's like, let me see what happened. Am I going to go bald, or am I going to, he's like, I didn't expect to find a half brother. I tell you that,
Oh my gosh. Okay. So Keto
that's another side story. Thank you.
For Eric Reynolds. That's the best way to get a hold of him. I'm going to go read about that story, and I'm sure plenty of other folks will as well. All right. Phil, any last words before we call this one?
No, just thanks for a great conversation. Thanks for everything you're doing, Eric. Keep spreading the word and helping those that help the rest of us. I think the law enforcement community really needs to get this message, and applaud everything you're doing.
Yeah,
I think they'll make better decisions. They get their mind clear. Maybe they'll make better decisions on the job too. And you going to Boca?
I am actually not going to make it to Boca this year because it conflicts with another project I'm working on. I'll be down in actually Costa Rica filming a documentary series.
Cool.
Around the same time, but look forward to seeing you again elsewhere in the near future.
Well, I'll send you a Keto Five-O coin. You get this when you lose 20 pounds in my group. It's a challenge coin that I give out to my clients and stuff. So I got to send you guys some. All right.
Beautiful.
All right.
Beautiful. And
sounds good.
If you bring the camper over to the other side of Florida there, we'll have to meet up there.
All right, man. Near Tampa, right?
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Hey, we don't want to be doxing
Very good.
anybody here.
Yeah.
All right. For Eric Reynolds, keto5o.com, and Dr. Philip Ovadia, this is the not iFix Hearts. This is the Stay Off My Operating Table podcast. You can follow Dr. O on Twitter at iFix Hearts. And I recommend that you subscribe to the podcast, click on that button so you're notified of any new episodes. We generally drop one every Tuesday. And best of all, go to his website, ifixhearts.com, take that metabolic health quiz, get yourself a baseline about where you are and where you need to be. And we'll talk to everybody next time.
Thank you.
America is fat and sick and tired. 88% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy and at risk of a sudden heart attack. Are you one of them? Go to ifixhearts.co and take Dr. Ovadia's metabolic health quiz. Learn specific steps you can take to reclaim your health, reduce your risk of heart attack, and stay off Dr. Ovadia's operating table.